Story 1. For my significant other and I's vacation, we went to Hawaii. Our inn was on Maui, which we heard was the best island for couples and vacations. The inn was near the ocean and each night they'd have light shows, luau's and different sorts of live amusement. During the initial not many days we did a ton of drinking and eatery bouncing. On our fourth day we needed to investigate one of the wilderness climbing trails as there our pack on the island, and it was on our list of must-dos for the outing. We drove our rental vehicle a lengthy drive to the closest parking area to PPY Trail, a long beautiful path in bamboo timberland in the wilderness. The path would ultimately prompt various cascades and secret lakes that you could swim in. We were told about it by certain local people and other sightseers. So that is the very thing we needed to do. There were a couple of vehicles in the parking garage. In any case, the parking garage wasn't only for this one path. Strolling down the way for some time, it really was only a mass of bamboo on either side of us. It was genuinely a climate I'd never seen previously. My significant other halted us and pointed at a little creature somewhat off the path. It was a mongoose. It was quit taking a gander at us, and we both thought it was charming. My significant other began moving toward it gradually, twisted down to seem more modest and less threatening. I did likewise. Obviously the little animal took off. Pretty quickly my significant other pursued it. Ridiculous. I stuck to this same pattern as we got further into the wilderness. Wandering away from the path, we heard the sound of water. It was a cascade close by. We followed the sound of it until we arrived at this delightful lake with a little cascade filling it. We plunged our feet in the water, and it was a shockingly agreeable temperature, and it was adequately profound to lower ourselves in, so we chose to do somewhat thin plunging, knowing how improbable it would be that any other person would be here. Well, clearly we were off base about that, since as we were in the water my better half screamed and said good gracious as she pointed at some more seasoned man in a straw cap, with a long dark facial hair growth remaining in the wilderness, half behind a tree, gazing at us. I'm excessively pleasant of an individual, so I waved for some stupid explanation as opposed to hollering to quit crawling on us, since that is what it appeared as though he was doing. He didn't wave back, he didn't grin, he didn't actually move. I took a gander at my better half and said we ought to leave. Be that as it may, she would have rather not gotten out of the water exposed so that him could see. I sort of concurred. So presently I shouted to him, inquiring as to whether he required something, and really at that time he called back in a shockingly profound voice, saying he's searching for his canine. I said we haven't seen it, and afterward he left. I shared with my significant other we want to go right away. We escaped the water and got dressed. Then, at that point, attempted to track down the path, yet we couldn't track down it. We wandered far enough away from it that we were clearly lost. We had lost the course we came from. Furthermore, there was no phone gathering around here. Time was slipping away in the day and frenzy was setting in. When the sun was setting, my better half was in tears. Meanwhile, as it got increasingly dark, we felt like we were being followed, hearing strides Once in a while. It arrived where the wilderness was totally dull now, and we needed to utilize our spotlights on our perishing telephones. In any case, when we heard strides coming from behind us again, I murmured to my significant other to switch it off to not uncover ourselves. We felt like we were being followed for hours. In the wake of flipping off the lights, it was totally dark briefly, so my eyes begun acclimating to the dimness. When that happened, I saw the figure around 10 feet away, and it was gradually crawling nearer. I stepped back leisurely as I pushed my significant other behind me. I got out, "Whatever do you need?" in a very anxious voice. My significant other clearly didn't see him, since she turned her telephone's electric lamp back on and pointed it at the figure, uncovering it to be that elderly person with a straw cap and facial hair growth holding a hacksaw. We both shouted. My significant other let out a shout of dread while I shouted, "Go, go," to her. We went through the wilderness with next to no lights. There was barely sufficient light to scarcely see where we were going. We endlessly ran, fortunately wearing tennis shoes and climbing clothing. At last I got cell gathering, so we followed the guide back to the parking garage we came from, which took a decent 10 to 15 minutes of running. We successfully returned to the vehicle, and at that point it seemed like we were given a new chance at life. The following day we went directly to the Maui police office and detailed the entire occurrence, trying to caution different travelers who might be visiting that explicit path. After that we attempted all that could be expected to proceed with our special night. However, it certainly put down things. Story 2. Lymatican acknowledged Logan's proposition, and the wedding surged in after the wedding. They went to Jackson, Wyoming to appreciate their sweet special night. The homestay proprietor, Grayson, who was a single man, was very amicable and energetically invited the couple. Grayson drove the couple to the convenience, and subsequent to chatting with Madison for some time, the proprietor unexpectedly burst out crying, making them befuddled. "It's nothing, I'm simply getting profound." Grayson gave the couple the key and discussed the homestay's rules. "In the event that both of you want anything, simply call me and I'll be near," he said prior to leaving. Now there was just the couple remaining in the delightful lakeside wooden house. That evening they had a heartfelt supper by the lake. The lovebirds ate steak while partaking in the second. Madison, out of nowhere, felt the chill run down her spine. However, behind her was only the trees, which were influencing in the breeze. "Honey, what's going on?" Logan stressed. "I think somebody is watching us," Madison said. Grayson said it's intriguing for a couple to have a wedding trip in this season, so we're distant from everyone else. There aren't any others here. Logan consoled his significant other. Muddy moved close to her significant other, yet something made her vibe shaky. At 12 p.m. Madison abruptly awakened, feeling cold, so she went near the window. It was dull and calm external. She could hear the stirring of leaves and the sound of creatures from the backwoods. Feeling a shudder, she immediately shut the window. Out of nowhere, Madison was surprised by a figure looking around the tree. The shadow just remained there, gazing at Madison, making her absolutely in shock. Madison consoled herself that perhaps she was envisioning it, so she pulled the shade down and afterward lifted it once more. The shadow vanished. "I've been thinking in excessive," she thought. Also, immediately hit the sack. The night blurred. Madison shouted, shocked Logan alert. The floor was covered with sloppy impressions extending from the way to the washroom. "Try not to stress, dear, I'm hanging around for you." Logan embraced his better half to comfort her, however. His face couldn't conceal the apprehension. He immediately educated Grayson and called the police. In the wake of examining the police confirmed that while the couple was dozing, an outsider had broken into the house and left. These doesn't follow anything was lost, yet their effects were spread around. The couple didn't find anything odd with the exception of Maddie's unusual sensation of somebody in the forest observing them. The police informed that the impressions were not sufficiently satisfactory to affirm the personality of the gatecrasher, so in the wake of reminding the couple to watch out, the police likewise immediately left. "Kindly acknowledge my statements of regret," Grayson said. "Tragically, I didn't expect this. Just sit back and relax. It wasn't excessively intense at any rate," Madison told the proprietor as she felt a little better at this point. "Much obliged to you," effortlessly and genuinely took Madison's hand. To make up for that episode, Grayson recommended the couple stay in another homestay and it would be totally free. The new homestay had a superior entryway lock. It was situated on a slope and not close the woodland, so the couple felt a lot more secure. Grayson additionally ensured that if there were any issue he would come quickly. All things considered, Madison actually felt uncomfortable after a heartfelt supper and some slow moves. The couple before long got worn out. Furthermore, hit the sack ahead of schedule to plan for the upcoming trip. Around midnight, Madison unexpectedly awakened, maybe on the grounds that she was still apprehensive. Even a little strong would surprise her. "Logan," she shouted to her spouse delicately, "I think somebody is attempting to break in the house." Her voice shuddered. Despite the fact that Logan wasn't completely conscious, he still went outside to check to console his better half. Madison sat shuddering in bed and paused. For him, Logan. Madison was terrified and hurried out. Good gracious. Logan was lying on the floor. She hurried towards him, however, before she could do anything, a figure halted her. Grayson. Madison was alarmed and ventured back in dread. Grayson strolled gradually toward her with a roll of channel tape in his hand. "Do you need?" Her voice shook with dread. "As soon as I met you, I saw my spouse in you. Both of you truly look to such an extent the same," Grayson tranquilly said. Madison upheld away in dread until she arrived at the wall, tears gushing in her eyes. "Try not to cry, Maddie, your lovely eyes can't be enlarged." Grayson cleaned the tears from her cheek. He inclined nearer to smell the aroma of her hair. God, even her fragrance was like that of his departed spouse. "Goodness," Madison asked and cried, yet Grayson didn't care the slightest bit. "I simply need you here with me," Grayson said. Then he contacted her cheek, causing Madison to feel significantly more nauseated. However, her appendages were frozen. She could not run or oppose. Right when Grayson was going to tie her up, Logan showed up in time and hit Grayson's head with a light. Thumping him to the floor, he figured out how to pull his better half away from the shocking homestay. In the wake of being gotten by the police, Grayson At last admitted it all, his better half passed on. Because of aggressive behavior at home, and from that point forward, he had forever been fixated on ladies who seemed to be his significant other. From the second he initially met Madison, he had thought hijacking and having her, yet the arrangement fizzled. As a masseuse, I need to manage a great deal of weird and troublesome clients. However, not even one of them were an issue to me, since I generally had a method for handling them. Well, individuals call me the zero protest staff in this back rub parlor thus far. So great, I kept my streak so well. The director perceived my incredible abilities and offered me an advancement in the 1 month from now, so up to that point I needed to show a greater amount of what I had, and in particular, keep my zero grumbling streak. Welcome to Mr. Frightening Back Rub. I grinned and welcomed a woman who just strolled in. She was another client. She was slight and her face had a great deal of kinks. I might want to have the most costly administration you have. She smiled so wide. All her yellow teeth were uncovered. There was still meat and vegetables on them. She would be my next client. I advised her to plunk down and showed her the help bundles. At the point when I made sense of the main bundle, she tossed me a nauseated grin. Is this all you have? That is all there is to it. Show me the best and the most costly bundle and we'll talk about. Her mouth emitted a horrendous smell. However, I was unable to dismiss. I told her to change garments before the back rub meeting. I didn't anticipate that her body should be so dainty. It was nearly quite emaciated, so at the point when I contacted her in the back I could, in a real sense, feel her bones distending. Goodness, come on, carry on with a little, God help us, she kept griping. On her skin there were a great deal of white chips of dead skin which looked so dirty, and they appalled me. I really wanted to shudder as I contacted her skin. In the meantime, she unexpectedly snatched my hand and said, mightn't you at any point make it happen a little more grounded? I need more than that. Sorry, I'll attempt. I attempted to show restraint toward her filthy body. At long last the 1-hour rub meeting finished and she left the room cheerfully. So fortunate for me that she didn't gripe about me, and I kept my proficient way until the last minute. Here came day 2 of her back rub bundle. She showed up so cantankerous. I arranged for myself a great deal of solidarity and perseverance while standing by to serve her when she completed the process of changing and lay on the bed. I quickly detected the odor radiating from her body, since I was apprehensive that the dead skin could tumble off her body. It caused me to feel sick during the back rub. I wouldn't even play with the possibility of scouring her skin vivaciously in light of the fact that I was apprehensive that the dead skin could tumble off her body. It caused me to feel sick. She began again. I attempted, however her disgusting body looked too appalling. I wavered briefly, then she stood up and said, "Joe Bed, I will grumble about you to the supervisor." "No please lady, we will find a way." On the off chance that she told the chief the advancement I was offered would be lost, so I went to the final hotel to stop her griping about me. To make it up, we offer you a hot homegrown shower. I attempted to sound conciliatory. Then I drove her to the hot tub and put water into it. She entered the tub with a fulfilled demeanor, however at that point went to me, "Fine, yet I actually need to gripe, don't you attempt to pay off me." I didn't say anything and just Grinned a couple of moments later she began to gradually nod off in the tub. I squeezed her head down into the tub and concealed it, then poured my mystery mixture in. This ought to be sufficient. Around 2 minutes after the fact she abruptly awakened and shouted, "Gracious, it's excessively hot." That was the temperature. I attempted to push the front of the tub down to ensure she was unable to get out. A man, the intensity would be great for my skin. You can definitely relax, I said, and attempted to hold it so she couldn't leap out of the tub, despite the fact that she battled to shout and cry. Got to kick the bucket, old granny. Watching her in aggravation, I was guaranteed that nobody could prevent me from getting my advancement. Continuously her body began to disintegrate. In the tub I immediately tied it up and unloaded all that I got out of the room and answered to the administrator that she had left for additional clinical consideration. What's more, wouldn't proceed with the treatment. With my little stunt, any individual who stands in my manner or means to grumble about my mentality should keep their mouths shut. Or on the other hand, I would have my method for preventing them from always talking once more. After that month I was at long last advanced to the chief of this spa. In the event that you have the opportunity, simply arrive here. I won't let you down of all time. Halloween was coming, and as a repulsiveness film fan, since it was presently September, I was beginning to get energized. I chosen to drop by the swap meet where they sold the most unusual and creepiest stuff yet. It was at that point 10 p.m. and the greater part of the bug markets were shut. There was only one that was open until late. After about an hour of driving I at last shown up there. While there, as of now, getting ready for Halloween, I felt like it was a disguise party. I meandered around the stars searching for some boss enrichments, old pumpkin lights, blurred floor coverings, counterfeit gravestones. Well, I'd been looking for some time yet hadn't found anything noteworthy yet. Hi, how could I help you? This one's for you. A business person in a Chucky outfit happily gave me a coupon. Gracious, expresses gratitude toward, I said with a grin. I'm only searching for designs. He drove me into the slow down. I'd never seen such an unusual spot before. The beautiful things here were all phony human body parts. This is great stuff. I got them from a boozer. Those things made my stomach turn. Goodness, okay. Be that as it may, perhaps individuals could do without them, he said. Unfortunately, I snickered ungracefully while looking at the things. The retailer followed me. It appeared to be that since I was the, as it were, guest here, he continued to chase after me, attempting to persuade me to purchase something. Kindly purchase something, please, I'm asking you. Satisfy, he continued to bother. Let me investigate it. God, he was so irritating. I simply needed to send him away. He was exceptionally troubled yet left for a well. Have you tracked down anything pleasant? He abruptly seemed making me nearly leap out of my skin. I know. At the point when he saw that I won't buy anything, he changed his demeanor quickly. For what reason is nobody able to purchase anything here? Why? He began shouting like a youngster getting distraught for candy and, surprisingly, began tossing things in the shop. Why? Goodness, sir, kindly quiet down. It appeared that he didn't pay attention to me. He kept such yelling, causing everybody outside to see he'd gone off the deep end. I was Stunned and frightened by this retailer's activities, I was anxious about the possibility that assuming I remained any longer he would accomplish something, truth be told, awful to me. So while he was all the while going insane without seeing me, I immediately left the shop. Why he was all the while shouting behind wowzers, that was odd despite the fact that I was far away from that store. My heart was all the while beating. There was just a short time before the market shut and my sack was as yet unfilled. I needed to pick up the pace. I immediately saw a jack-o'-lantern in the slowdown that was going to close. This was all good. So I snatched the light, paid for itself, and then went into the parking area. Along the way there I had an inclination that somebody was chasing after me. Turning, I perceived that Chucky garments and hair. Golly, is he following me? What was it that he need? Was he frantic at me for not accepting anything from his place? I gulped hard and attempted to keep even-headed anyway. When I strolled, he moved likewise, and when I ran he quickly pursued me. What might I do? I continued to hold the light and ran while the man pursued right behind. Golly, there was nobody around. I stumbled and tumbled to the ground, and he likewise halted. He looked at me like he was taking a gander at the prey in a snare. At him, he had zero desire to let me go, and afterward he took out a blade. For what reason didn't you purchase anything from me, G? He gradually strolled towards me, his voice loaded with hatred. I was so terrified at this point that I could cry and ask, yet he came increasingly close. Let an offensive client. His appearance out of nowhere turned wild as assuming he was attempting to decimate me, and he raised his blade. I mixed to get up, however it was as well late. The agony immediately spread. The injury was draining relentless. In the interim, the man was gradually getting a charge out of seeing me in torment. He seemed to be a wiped-out cycle. I'll look down on the entryway and somebody will get it without a doubt. Snarled. That was the point at which I understood that every one of the things in his store were in fact produced using genuine human body parts. Hello, is an off-base thing around there? The voice of a bystander reverberated as the man was going to swing his blade again. While he was occupied, I put my entire existence into it and hopped up and attempted to run. That was my vehicle around there. I surged over in torment. I drove away in the nick of time before the man beaten on the entryway once more. I continued driving without really considering halting until I found the closest police headquarters. I was taken into the trauma center. In time, the man had vanished from the market and was rarely distinguished, yet the shocking recollections he brought back that day will unquestionably follow me for the rest of my life. Story 3. We aren't the most extravagant couple out there. We both work everyday responsibilities to make closes meet. We're doing okay presently, yet back when we got hitched we were battling. So when it came time for our wedding trip, we were unable to go hard and fast and impact all our cash. My significant other, who I'll decide to keep anonymous, was doing explore for reasonable oceanside escapes, and she tracked down a confidential house in the Bahamas for 3 evenings on Airbnb, so we went with that. After flight tickets and the expense for the rental, it didn't emerge to that much. Upon appearance, we entered the code for the latch on the way to let ourselves into the home. It had an open lounge and kitchen, a huge room, one restroom and a major back deck that prompted the private ocean side. We went through all the main day around the ocean, then strolled to a close-by eatery for supper. At the point when we got back, this is where the peculiar thing began occurring. When we strolled in the entryway, we seen things appeared as though they were in some unacceptable spots, like our shoes, our packs, etc. Nothing was absent, however, so we blamed each other for having moved the stuff in advance. We hopped in the hot tub that was on the back deck for some time until we both heard something from inside the house, like a bang or an entryway shutting. I got out from the hot tub to check, dribbling all around the floor of the house. Every one of the entryways was shut, however I didn't recall whether they were open prior or not. In any case, I checked the room and it was clear of any interlopers as well as the restroom. I returned outside to get a towel and put my garments on. I was finished in the hot tub in any case, as was my better half, however I was growing somewhat dubious, or wary you could say. The second day we sat on the ocean front for a while again, then went to a portion of the touristy region of the Bahamas and did supper. At the point when we got back again, we felt like the situation were unique. Our stuff appeared to be in similar spots. Be that as it may, the washroom and room entryways were open, and we didn't recall keeping them open. We realized it was potential we were being jumpy now, and didn't, as a matter of fact, recall how the entryways were left yet. Still, it was getting awkward at this point. We ensured every one of the windows and entryways were locked, and we avoided the hot tub. That evening we just watched films on the television in the family room, as there was a bundle of remembered web-based features for there. There was no higher up to the house at this point. We figured we could hear little taps and whatnot over our heads. Perhaps the rooftop, perhaps an iguana or some comparative animal. As of now, we were in any event beginning to figure there may be some sort of bohemian dreadful little animal in the house. It appeared to be a more intelligent clarification concerning there being an gatecrasher in this somewhat little space. That evening I was sleeping before my better half. She was in the shower when I heard her shout. I essentially burst up to run into the washroom. She turned the water off by that and let me know that there was something in the vent over the shower. I got on the edge of the tub and looked in it, however it was excessively dim in there. Anyway, I heard a few little clamors coming from him there. This nearly affirmed that there was a rat or some little animal in the vents of the house. Still, we had another day. It wasn't our issue. We hit the sack together. The following thing I recall was awakening to my significant other shaking me. She had this appalled look all over that quickly sent shudders down my spine. She advised me to tune in, and the quiet of the room permitted me to hear it. This wild-eyed murmuring sound coming from the roof, especially one of the roof vents. That was all there was to it. I got my telephone to call the proprietor of the Airbnb. I heard the ringing, yet all the while I heard this vibrating sound from above us. Quickly I began to think, standby, is there a higher up that the proprietor is living in? The vibrating above us halted nearly as rapidly as it began, however the call was as yet ringing on my end. Inquisitively I took my telephone's electric lamp. Also, pointed it up through the vents and, for simply a brief moment I saw somebody peering down through the vent into the room. Most quiet I saw their eyes. We pressed all of our significant stuff as rapidly as we could. It took all of around 30 seconds and we were out the front entryway. We went through the sandy country road until we reached a road and we halted to get our breaths. We remained in a modest inn that evening. Furthermore, the following night too. The last day we burned through the vast majority of it pausing at the air terminal. However, we detailed this episode to Airbnb and we got all of our cash back, and I'm almost certain Airbnb prohibited the proprietor of that house's record. We sought after nothing further with lawful activity as we were only glad to get our cash back. Nothing of our own was absent except for who the damnation understands what sort of obscure he was doing there when we weren't in the house. Story 4. My wedding trip was in Sicily. Our lodgings were in Palermo, Jaffalo and Messina in a specific order. While in Messina we did a large portion of the touring at locales like Abdominal Ache. Messina was loaded with wonderful old engineering and exhibition halls to investigate, which is what my better half Patricia and I partake in the most. Messina is a port-weighty city, and like the remainder of Sicily there are a great deal of English-talking vacationers, yet in addition a ton of Italian-talking local people. We truly talk no Italian past perhaps a rudimentary level. We'd have a ton of local people moving toward us, attempting to sell us things. Around evening time the energy where we were was enjoyable. Heaps of music, individuals drinking and moving and so forth. We were sharing a tad while additionally proceeding to stroll around and investigate. The night got the better of us and we wound up becoming pretty inebriated, and the time flew by. Pretty soon it was past 12 p.m. and things outside on the roads were calming down. We messed up back to our inn and sort of lost ourselves. At last we wound up in this questionable rear entryway, and Patricia was lashing out that we appeared to be entering a questionable region. I put my arm around her to cause her to feel more secure. Unexpectedly some person came dependent upon us, offensively close, communicating in Italian like an automatic rifle, so fast we were unable to even endeavor to see any words. We were unable to know if he was furious or concerned, yet he appeared to be wild. He continued to say this word phantasma. At that point I didn't have the foggiest idea what that word implied. I pushed the person out of our appearances and strolled Patricia and I rapidly out of the back street. He shouted more stuff at us in Italian. I didn't figure out a solitary expression of it. As we moved away from him I researched what the word phantasma implied in light of the fact that it was the main word that he continued to rehash. That stuck out. It implies apparition, and when we viewed that as out we took a gander at one another. I couldn't resist the opportunity to anxiously snicker, to attempt to get Patricia giggle also, just since it sounded absurd. We were in this dull, crude region of the city. Without a doubt there didn't appear to be any other individual around. We'd regularly call a Uber, yet it's not indeed even a thing in Sicily. So we needed to walk it. I need to concede I was presumably as awkward as Patricia as we'd heard. Certain pieces of the city were dangerous at night. There was this peaceful lady's crying sound digging out from a deficit us all of a abrupt. We both heard it and we both thought back. There was this youthful however shockingly tall lady around 10 yards from us, strolling gradually toward us. Her face was covered in her grasp. Her level was very tall. She looked taller than me. It was frightening to such an extent that even, truth be told, Patricia was normally a sweet supporting individual murmured that we ought to get the damnation away from her. We run down this tight road and gone left to another rear entryway. Furthermore, we turned around again to the crying sounds. That lady was presently toward the finish of this rear entryway simply behind us, yet at the same time strolling at a similar sluggish speed, her face still covered in her grasp. It seemed like we were in this channel of rear entryways and thin roads that goes only one direction, and each time we turn we'd in any case hear the crying behind us. It possibly halted when we successfully returned to, I think, about what you call one of the fundamental streets with other regular citizen traffic other than us. From that point we basically strolled back to the lodging. Patricia continued to demand what we saw was a phantom, and each time she said it gave me chills. This story doesn't do it any equity in making sense of exactly how upsetting seeing that tall lean lady strolling towards us in that back street was. Also that folks give the signal phantom in Italian again and again. I'm not precluding it as some sort of insane over-the-top joke. As far as I might be aware, we wound up on some Italian YouTube trick channel, however. Patricia demands accepting it was, as a matter of fact, a phantom. We saw it still gives me chills pondering that plausibility.